episode 81. How you doing, Dr. Pompa?
Excellent, excellent. I'm standing today next to my board, which I will pull over when I need it. So you know you're going to get a good teaching today when the board is here.
We do. I'm excited. And our topic today is weight loss resistance. And it's a huge topic. I know a lot of you watching, and so many of us out there struggle with our weight. I just pulled up some quick data from the CDC this morning, and 35% of adults are obese, not even just overweight, obese.
That's
and 69% of adults are overweight. So many people struggling with being overweight, being obese, and even actively trying to lose weight and just not being able to get the scale to budge. So this is a really, really important topic, and I know you have some answers and some solutions and an explanation as to why this is happening for so many people too.
Yes.
So why don't we back up a little bit, and if you can just kind of explain what weight loss resistance is, the state of weight loss resistance, and why so many people are struggling with the inability to lose weight.
Yeah, I mean, simple definition. It's the inability to lose weight despite what you eat and how much you exercise. You know, do I have some people's attention yet? Because, you know, look, I think that when we talk about weight loss, a lot of people think, oh, you know, it's just, you know, you're a glutton. I just can't stop eating. And, you know, I remember years ago, we marketed, you know, the fact that it's not your fault. And it was just a huge pull for people, because that was it. Because people, you know, understood that, gosh, you know, it's like I just keep failing, and they beat themselves up. I just give in. I'm eating this way, and then all of a sudden I just give in. Well, that's a hormonal issue, and it's not your fault. It's part of weight loss resistance. When we look at the hormones involved in why people can't lose weight, despite what they eat and how much they exercise, we realize that the inability to lose weight is more about hormones than what you eat. And so there's a reason for that you're going to get on this show. So meaning that you could eat the perfect diet. I know these people, you know, it's like, I eat better than any one of my friends. I eat better than anyone in my house. And yet I still have this, right? Or that area, or that, you know, they just can't lose that extra 10, 20, 30, you know, or even budge from where they are. You know, there is an epidemic answer, and it's happening huge. It's happening to more and more people. And Meredith, this wasn't a problem until literally, I mean, the last 10 years we've seen, you know, an explosion of weight loss resistance, an explosion, you know, and there is a reason. And the better part is there's an answer. There is. I never, ever thought I was going to be the weight loss, you know, expert out there, and nor do I still don't want to be labeled as that, right? That's like my goal in love is to get very sick people well with unexplainable illnesses. You know, I love that. You know, that's what really cranks my clock, because I was one, and I've been called to that. However, you know, how did this weight loss thing come about? Because most people that have neurotoxic illness or neurotoxins cannot lose weight regardless of what they do, because it is in fact a hormone issue, you know, and that's what people have to understand. You know, there's hormones that make you fail on your diet. Okay. So meaning it's not your fault. So you're going along, and, you know, you do great for a month, and, you know, it really is, and I'll explain why this is a cellular issue, but you fail. You cannot not eat, you know, the bread, or, you know, whatever it is, and you give into it. And then there's the people, Meredith, who are steady with their diet, perfect diet all the time, and don't fail because they give in, because that's one subset. But the other group is they're perfect all the time and still can't lose weight. So we're going to have answers for both of those people on this show.
It's so frustrating for so many people too. I know that say that they're doing everything right, eating well, exercising, and still can't lose those, not even just last 10, 15 pounds, sometimes even more than that. And you see the frustration and just the lack of understanding. So I think this answer is going to be really, really important to hear for a lot of people.
You know, I think when we talk about weight loss, I always like to start here. You know, look, it's a 180-degree concept or 180-degree solution when we talk about weight loss. Because first of all, there's a lot of myths, right? You know, I think one of the biggest myths is, you know, fat makes you fat. And something that I always say is, no, no, no. Look, fat doesn't make you fat. It's the inability to burn your fat that's the problem. That's a hormone issue. So we got to talk about that. But I think another myth is that we just cut our calories. You're eating too much. You're just a glutton, right? And that has to be dealt with. And then finally, the third myth is you're just lazy. You exercise more. Just get your butt out there and exercise and run. No, no, no. These people who are in weight loss resistance, they're doing everything. I mean, do you ever see the aerobics instructor that still has about 20 to lose and she's in there 6 classes a day? I mean, look, our government
calorie diet too on top of that. Eating a low fat, low calorie diet on top of that.
There you go. Low fat, low calorie, exercise your butt off. If that worked, we'd be a skinny nation because we eat more low fat, more low calories. Look at the calories on this versus the calories of that. And we exercise like mad people. So it's not working, folks. It's not going to work because it's not the problem. We don't need more. Listen, I love exercise, but it's the cherry on the top. You should be thin and lean and lose weight without even any exercise. And again, I love exercise. I think it's very healthy. But let's take it out of this equation, please. Our government wants to think it's about, our kids are fat and obese because of the lack of exercise. Oh, hogwash. It's baloney. Oh, and then we think it's just all these calories we're eating. Hogwash. And my gosh, really, the low fat movement is still going despite volumes of, literature showing that we actually need fat to lose fat? It's remarkable to me. I get so frustrated, but it gives me a job. It gives me something to talk about that I still have to battle low-fat diets, low-calorie diets, and let's pound the pavement outside. Let's bust those myths before we get into the answer, right? All right, so low calories, let's just start there. Yeah, love it. Low calories. What the heck is going on with low-calorie diets? Does it work? That's the question I'm always asked. And look, I can tell you right now, it works for about 10 pounds. Guys out there, maybe 20, right? I mean, but it's the 20, but you still have 40 more, right? So it doesn't work long term. Anybody can cut calories and lose that initial 5 or 10 pounds. That's why, but here's the problem. Eventually, you need more and more and more caloric restriction. You have to bring it down because you lose that 5 or 10 pounds and then you stop. And then what you have to do is you have to cut them again and again. All of a sudden, you're down to 500 to 800 calories and the weight loss just stops because the lower you go in calories, the lower your metabolism goes. So you're headed for failure. And there's a reason for that. But so that's the point. We can't just keep cutting. The metabolism goes up. Then we get skinny fat. Your body starts to burn its muscle and it keeps its fat. So now you look like your scale weight goes down, but you're getting skinny fat, and really it looks worse. So caloric restriction does not work long term. Every one of us have cut calories probably back in the day and go, yeah, but it worked. Yeah, but not long term. And when you only have 5 or 10 pounds, you kind of lose that, but then you lose muscle and you slow down. And so it never, ever, ever really works. So there is that. Go ahead.
And isn't it true for a lot of people that have that skinny fat, they have fatty liver issues as well?
Yeah, a lot of people that have skinny fat, they say, well, gosh, they think that they're healthier because they're not obese. But you're right. Typically, they hold what was called a fatty liver. So if you have a husband or wife out there that they can eat everything and they're fine, typically they're the ones that have the heart attack, end up with the disease, the bottom falls out because, right, their liver gets fatty. You're going to store that darn fat supply somewhere. It's either in the liver or on your body. So, genetics will determine that. And yeah, the fatty liver is more dangerous than storing it around your waist, believe it or not. So yeah, nobody gets away with it. So, that's it. So there goes the caloric thing. You're headed for trouble. Eventually, you're going to break and give in. And then you end up more fatter, right? More fat, I should say. More fatter. I actually made, 2 incorrect statements all in one phrase. So you end up more fatter. You end up more fat, because it's the yo-yo thing, right? It's like you end up going down, 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 down. You end up skinny fat with less muscle. And then you can't withstand it anymore. And so you start eating the bad diet after a month of doing this. And then boom, you end up fatter with a lower metabolism. It's a disaster. It's a disaster.
Worse than you started often. And I bet some people are thinking too, what about the 5 to 6 mini meals a day? That seems to work for some people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, okay, that brings me into a very, very important conversation, because I'm always asked that. Well, you know, if you eat, because I mean, most trainers, most dietitians tell people to eat 5, 6 meals a day. Just like caloric restriction, Meredith, it actually works because there's a reason why, but it works here and not here. So it doesn't work long term, because when you're eating 5, 6 meals a day, you don't ever give your body time to burn this. You see, because you're always eating. So it never goes and says, okay, I have to burn this. You know, when you and I, we take a lot of time in between meals. So therefore, our body needs energy. It's burning our fat. And there's a benefit to that. Next week, we're going to talk about anti-aging, you know, how to look amazing at 50 or 60 and beyond, you know, because there's really some amazing tricks to that actually work, and it's not a serum, I can promise you. But anyways, you know, the key is controlling glucose in insulin. You know, that is very, very important. The only real way to do that, Meredith, is not eat and be efficient fat burner. The problem is, here's the problem. I've got to bring the board into this part of the conversation as we talk about meals. So I'm going to tip this down. I'm going to bring you all over here. I think we can see. Yeah, perfect. Okay. My head's a little cut off. I guess I could give myself a little bit of breathing room. Okay. So, y'all, I have said this again and again and again. It's about the cell. Okay. This is the key. You know, you don't feel well. You don't get well until you what, Meredith?
Fix the cell.
Fix the cell. Well, you won't lose weight until you fix the cell either. So let's talk about that. So here's the thing. Let's start right here. Your cells can only use 2 things for energy, sugar or fat. If you're at home, write it down. I'm not going to teach you biochemistry, but I want you to know that simple fact that the cell can only use 2 things for energy, sugar or fat. Very healthy people that can stay lean their whole life and feel good with lasting energy and sleep well, they have the ability to burn fat or sugar, fat or sugar. Most Americans, Meredith, are stuck as sugar burners, meaning that they have the hormonal ability to only burn sugar. They don't have the hormonal ability to utilize fat as energy, okay? This explains why all diets fail. This explains why you get the cravings and you can't control them. And it also explains why people just stop losing weight and can't lose it anymore. Because here's the deal. So when our cells can burn sugar or fat, when you don't have sugar, then what is your cells going to use for energy? Fat, right? Fat. Yeah. So your sugar, when you don't have glucose, so if I'm not eating, my body goes into the ability to burn my fat that's all around my body. And the cell uses that energy, okay? And it's a cleaner burning energy. It ages you slower. We'll talk about that next week. Okay, but when you don't have the hormonal ability to burn fat, then your body it can only use sugar. Why is that a problem? Because here's why. You're going to either get a craving you can't resist, or your body's going to eat your muscle and lower your metabolism. So, for example, you're going along your day and your body needs energy, but it can only burn sugar. Hormonally, it can't burn fat. So it doesn't want to waste and cannibalize its muscle because it needs it, fight or flight. It always wants to survive, right? So what it does is it says, Meredith, eat carbohydrates. We need sugar. So therefore, you get this unresistible craving for bread, sugar, cake, whatever it is, or simply just to eat, which it knows you eat carbohydrates because it wants to get sugar. It can't burn its fat around its body. So yeah, eating 5 meals a day keeps you from burning your muscle. So therefore your metabolism stays up and it works. But the problem is you never tap into your fat. It's a bad idea. So long-term, no good. So the key then is if we can get our cells hormonally to burn fat, now when you're not eating, your body goes, oh, we have all this fat. Let's start to burn it, metabolize it. And now you have lasting energy, and you're what? You're getting naturally thinner. So when you're not eating, you don't get cravings, by the way. You go, oh, geez, I haven't eaten in 8 hours. You know, and you're not hungry because your body's been eating for 8 hours, keeping its glucose levels perfect. So, but that's not what happens to most Americans. What happens to most Americans is they get the craving they can't resist. I told you it wasn't your fault. That's a hormone problem. So let me explain what happens there. But do you have any questions? Did I explain that well? Does that make sense?
Oh, I think it makes great sense. And I have some other things to add, but I think this is going to be important too to draw it out why people just
we'll make sure
that.
Let me just give one example. If you look at a diabetic, right, a type 2 diabetic that has a lot of insulin, but they can't use it, right? They're not getting the glucose in the cell, okay? Because that's what insulin does. It shuttles sugar into the cell. They have their highest glucose levels typically in the morning. And people say, well, why is that? I haven't eaten for 10 hours, 13 hours. Why is my glucose highest in the morning? Well, I always say, no, you ate all night long. Because of your inability to burn fat and utilize fat at the cell for energy, your body will take muscle through the night and it will burn the muscle into sugar, or it will dump your stored sugar. Either way, it's bad. So therefore, you wake up with this high glucose level. Now, if your body had the hormonal ability to burn fat, at night, you would wake up with a normal glucose, because at night you do need a lot of energy and your body burns fat. So Meredith, we always wake up in the morning and we look leaner. Literally, you know, we burn that little bit of fat because we haven't eaten for many hours. So, but to do that, you have to get the cell to burn fat. So let's talk about that and then we'll add it. Okay, so I've always said that the key to all hormone problems is these receptors to the hormone. You know, we've talked a lot about thyroid hormone, which has a lot to do with your ability to your cell to use fat for energy. We talked a little bit about a hormone called leptin that controls your appetite and indirectly your body's ability to burn fat. And insulin, which is also, when insulin is up, your body stores fat or burns fat. So these guys have a lot to do with your body's ability. These are the fat-burning hormones, if you will, okay? These hormones somehow directly, indirectly signal your brain to burn fat or store fat, to eat, not to eat, right? So this is all controlled by hormones. There's probably others as well. Of course there are, but let's focus on these. These hormones have to attach to these receptors, like insulin. And once it does, then the hormone does its job. Then insulin can bring the glucose into the cell, and then it can be burned for energy. When that doesn't work, when these receptors to insulin don't work right or get blunted, and we always say that that blunting happens from inflammation. Ask me the major causes of that, because that's important. But inflammation of the cell, which we hear all these things about, inflammation causes cancer, causes diabetes, causes this, causes that. We're talking about cellular inflammation that blunts these antennas, these receptors to the hormone. Now, insulin can't get the message in. So now glucose builds up outside the cell, so does insulin, and that ages you prematurely, okay? And it drives more inflammation. And when insulin and glucose go up out here, you get fat, okay? So that's not good. Leptin is another hormone that when it binds to the receptor, it shuts off the hunger, it makes you satisfied, and it indirectly kicks in your body to burn fat, which ultimately also shuts down the hunger and the desire for food. So it kicks in this metabolism. You feel good because you're burning your fat. So this is another really important hormone. But again, when inflammation blunts those receptors, now you can't hear the hormone. And now you start to not burn fat for energy. And you simply can't control your hunger oftentimes, right? So this is the key. If we can get the cell to listen to these hormones, and of course we could talk the same about thyroid hormone, right? So if we could get our cell hearing these hormones better, that means we have to reduce inflammation, get these receptors working again. Now they get their message into the cell, And now you can become an efficient fat burner again. Therefore, now, Meredith, when you're not eating, you're burning fat. Now, when your body wants to, efficiently get energy, it can utilize your fat supply. And now you don't touch your muscle. Your metabolism stays up. No more skinny fat. Consistent energy through the day. No more brain fog. The key, though, is you have to get your cell hearing these fat hormones, if you will. These hormones that regulate metabolism, eating, food, your desire to eat, not to eat, and fat burning itself. So the key is we have to reduce the cellular inflammation and get these receptors working again. Now, I want to make one comment, and then I want you to ask me some questions that those people watching would ask. So the key is, if the key to weight loss and hormone problems is to get these receptors working and hearing the hormones, because I said that weight loss has more to do with hormones than it does even the food that you eat. But we want to reduce inflammation, and we can talk about that. But we want to get these receptors working. I said that you need fat to burn fat. Well, these hormone receptors ride on something that's called a lipid raft. That is a raft made of fat. The two fats that are most responsible for stabilizing this hormone receptor to make it work are cholesterol and saturated fat. The two fats.
Oh, no, cholesterol and saturated fat.
Those are the two fats that are just vilified. They are the bad guys. Again, our government says stay away from these fats. Well, meanwhile, they're the very fats that people who struggle to lose weight need. But here's the problem. You have to be able to break these fats down, utilize these fats. And when you do, we can start to get this receptor to the hormone healthy. We need these fats. No, low-fat diets do not work. It's not my opinion. It's fact. Low-fat diets do not work. The key is we need these fats to get the hormone receptors working. So we need fat to burn fat. We need fat to fix these hormone receptors. And we need fat to get ourselves to become efficient fat burners. It's a hormone problem. It's in the cell. The fats that they're telling us to stay away from are the very fats that we need. It has nothing to do with calories. It has everything to do with hormones. Meredith, I don't eat a lot of food. I eat very nutritious, dense foods. My body tells me when to stop eating. When I'm not eating, I'm burning fat. That's because my cells hear the hormones. So this is the key to feeling good, your brain to work better. This is the key to staying lean and healthy without a fatty liver. Right there. Okay. Hopefully you have some questions.
Yeah. Well, 180 concept, eat fat to lose fat. Write that down. And just to back up a little bit too. So you said that inflammation is blunting these hormone receptors on our cell so that these hormones aren't communicating for our cells to burn fat. But what's causing this inflammation in the first place?
Yeah, I give three major causes, okay? First of all, right now, people are eating a lot of a particular fat that, ironically enough, our government says is a good one. It's not. It's vegetable oil. Polyunsaturated fatty acids are very vulnerable to heat and any type of denaturing. They denature, they become a rancid, toxic fat. I think we all remember, or we at least understand the damages of these man-made fats like hydrogenated oils or partially hydrogenated oils and trans fats. Is probably a better word than most people, because things say trans fat free, this and that. Well, great. We've got those fats out of most foods today because they don't market well. People don't want them. They don't even know why they're bad necessarily. They're bad because they come in and they stick to your cell membrane. Fat attracts fat. This membrane is made of fat, by the way. That's why it's so important to eat good fats. And those fats come in, they attach to the membrane. We'll make them as circles. And what happens is they drive inflammation. They blunt those hormone receptors. They cause hormone resistance. Ultimately, whether it's diabetes, where you can't hear the hormone insulin, whether it's hypothyroid, where you can't hear the hormone thyroid, thyroid hormone, T3, or whether it's leptin resistance, which has, a direct effect on your body's ability to get rid of fat and use fat. So, and even your appetite. So, you know, that is key that we understand that these fats, these bad fats, come in and they drive the inflammation and blunt those receptors, okay? Now, so the big one, though, that people are eating today, and they don't realize how bad it is vegetable oils. And Meredith, I always say this, I have no problem with vegetable oils in vegetables. Very healthy, very protected, doesn't drive cellular inflammation. Pull vegetable oil out of the vegetable, now put it in potato chips, bread, cookies, everything that kids are eating today. Of course, now we're eating a rancid oil, just like the hydrogenated trans fats that come in, they come into the cell, and then they drive inflammation. Okay, so that's the link to diabetes. That's the link. You know, but again, you know, once something in government gets going, it's almost impossible to pull it back. You know, they're saying that low fat is good and eat vegetable oils. The exact opposite of what studies show. There's, you know, many studies out there. I mean, studies in multiple different universities, Harvard and on, that show that fats like saturated fat actually fix and improve hormone resistance. You know, go figure. And fats like vegetable oils are the culprits driving hormone resistance, whether it's your thyroid problem or your diabetes insulin problem, or just the inability to lose weight. Stay away from vegetable oils. Start eating more of these healthy saturated fats from grass-fed animals, not regular meat in stores. Those create bad fats when cows eat grain. We've talked enough about that in the past. We don't have to get into it, but we want good, solid fats. And again, Meredith, we've done more articles and more shows on what those fats are. In the Cellular Healing Diet book, we list all the good fats in the Cellular Healing Diet book. They're there, even the fats to cook with. Because oftentimes people take a good fat like olive oil, overheat it, and now it becomes a rancid fat that can also drive inflammation. Butter, such a great fat that fixes the cell membrane. Real grass-fed butter, like Kerrygold, you can buy in most stores now. That's a great fat that helps these receptors. If you brown it and it starts to smoke, you made a bad fat or a good fat bad. And now that too can drive oxidation of this membrane. So it's in the book. I don't remember the page. It used to be page 19, but maybe it's something else now. But you know, those fats are in the book, Meredith, and you could probably talk about. You could probably point them to some articles to know which fats are safe and which ones aren't. But it's not the fats that you think, folks. It's not the fats you think. So.
Yeah, the Eat Fat, Lose Fat article that we posted a couple months ago on drpompa.com lists some of the good fats to cook with. And my favorite high heat fat to cook with is avocado oil. It actually has a smoke point, I think, of, it's over 500 degrees. So from my research, seems like it's the best high heat cooking oil. And I like coconut oil a lot for higher heat, kind of moderate heat, about 350 degrees or so cooking too is the oil. So those are two really good ones for high heat cooking, because any saturated fat, even like a grass-fed beef tallow, any fat that's solid at room temperature is going to be better for high heat cooking because it's stable.
Now, saturated fats are stable, right? Exactly. Polyunsaturated fats, like vegetable oils, canola oils, that they are not stable. They're rancid oils that drive inflammation. So, okay, so that's one, you know, just to keep with the show here. So you need fat, the right fats, to fix these receptors, to help fix the cell membrane. You know, those are the building blocks that we need for hormone problems. And those are the fats that people are being told to stay away from. There's good cholesterol and saturated fats. Butter is not bad. There's another 180-degree myth. Butter is very good. Just don't overheat it. So, and olive oils are great too. I mean, again, you know, we're not here to talk about every fat. You can, you know, look at our materials to get that. But then let's talk about we talked about raising glucose and insulin. Every time you spike glucose and insulin, you drive this inflammation big time. You know, it ages you prematurely. That's why diabetics, they don't die from diabetes. They die from heart disease, strokes, you know, even an elevation in cancer. Why? Because spikes in glucose and insulin, despite taking your medications and despite every time it spikes, it drives inflammation of the cell. Ages you prematurely.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah. So.
And they look for too many diabetics.
Yeah. So the diabetics, they literally eat. They have neuropathies. Their nerves because the elevation of glucose and insulin, their nerves start to decay. Their nerves inflame, the cells in the nerves, and of course they end up with major problems from that. So if you want to age faster than anybody that you know, simply elevate glucose and insulin. You will oxidize these membranes. You will drive hormone problems. That's why diabetics end up with thyroid conditions and vice versa. That's why they end up with weight problems or fatty livers, because that rise in glucose and insulin drives inflammation and it blunts these receptors to the hormones. Remember, you know, I have to always say this. The answer to these hormone epidemic, whether it's thyroid, diabetes, testosterone, estrogen, it's not giving more hormones. No, the answer is getting the cell to hear the hormones. Therefore, that is fixing this inflammation problem. That is, you know, we start with getting rid of the main things that we know drive it. The bad fats we just mentioned. We have to control glucose and insulin. You know, in Meredith, the 5 strategies articles, we could call that the 5 strategies for weight loss resistance. Number 1, control glucose and insulin. And we give you ideas in that article to do that. The cellular healing diet does that. Sometimes we have to put people in keto adaptation, which is an advanced cellular healing diet. We've written articles about keto adaptation. But when you get these guys in control, then now you're aging slower. You know, we're going to build on that next week. But I have to say that, you know, the key to that, though, is we have to get your cells utilizing fat, because that normalizes your glucose. You know, that's very, very important point to make. So we don't want to spike these guys to drive inflammation. And third, just to finish this off, of the 3 major things that drive inflammation, this is the big one. This is the big one that's driving, I believe, the epidemic that we've seen in the last 10 years. I'll mark these guys with big X's. These X's are toxins. Toxins make their way to the fat membrane, and toxins are driving inflammation like nobody's business. If you are someone out there that struggles to lose weight, there is no doubt in my mind that despite what you do, it does not matter. You are the classic weight loss resistant person, toxins is the issue. This is the hidden epidemic. This is what's blunting the hormone receptors. This is what's driving brain fog, lack of energy. If you have a lack of energy, it's because your cells aren't making the energy called ATP. That's the gasoline. See, we have lasting energy because our bodies burn fat when it needs energy, and we make ATP from our fat. And we have consistent energy day in, day out, all day long. We sleep well. We have good brain function because it needs ATP for your brain to work. Most people are surviving on glucose only, the hormonal inability because of this to utilize their fat. And therefore, they're up and down with their, with their brain working. They can't burn their fat. They don't have steady energy. This is the epidemic. So we have to get the cell hearing these hormones, become an efficient fat burner. And now you forget to eat because your body's utilizing fat. Now your glucose and insulin levels are controlled all day long. You're living longer without inflammation, feeling better. That's it.
Yeah. Wow.
Toxins. So there's the 3 things. Now I probably got you going with more questions.
You do, yeah. So the 3 things that are really driving this hormone dysregulation, which leads to the weight loss resistance, just to review, along with bad fats, controlling blood sugar is key to downregulating the inflammation. But and then toxicity, this toxicity issue is driving all of this hormone dysregulation. And so we ideally then want to decrease all this inflammation, fix our cell membranes, and then shift over into fat burning mode. And so people are probably wondering, so what is this fat burning mode you're speaking of? Ketosis. First time to this podcast or watching us, can you just kind of explain that, give a little bit of an overview in how to shift over into the fat burning mode so your cells can start to burn fat instead of just relying on glucose for energy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do have some strategies. Matter of fact, the 5 strategy articles. I think that people are going to get a lot of great information from those articles. And I guess if they just go to articles and put 5 strategies, would it come up if they did that in the search bar under my articles?
Yep, at drpompa.com. If you are on the homepage, you can just click on articles, and there's some of the most recent articles. They're the top 5 strategies for your best health, and these are Dr. Pompa's 5 strategies to get you where you want to get with your health, and also they are amazing strategies for breaking out of weight loss resistance. So so you'll find those under the articles tab. That'll take you to the page where you can read all the articles.
One of the things we talk about in there is diet variation, and how varying your diet really gets your body hormonally to become more sensitive. You know, your body drives hormones like growth hormone and testosterone and these anabolic hormones that help keep us in a better fat burning mode. And also it downregulates inflammation. So, you know, read the article Diet Variation. We also talked about intermittent fasting and how we utilize intermittent fast to become more efficient fat burner. Because again, when you look at the studies on intermittent fasting, yes, it raises growth hormone, which helps the sensitivity of the cell membrane to become more sensitive to hormones. But that's what it shows. That it shows that the cell becomes more sensitive to hormones. And therefore, you know, we can start to become more efficient fat burners. You know, I think that some people, before they do some, you know, some daily intermittent fasting, which we talk about in that article, I think they need to do some detox first, oftentimes. And that's a really, you know, important thing that I would like to talk about next. The last strategy in that 5 series is true cellular detox. Now, you just said, I noticed I said cellular detox. That's the key. And I think that I could explain that system and why that works for weight loss and how that applies to fixing the cell. You know, so let's talk a little bit about that strategy. So I do want to encourage you. We've done so many shows on these other topics like intermittent fasting, which I think is an amazing strategy to become more of an efficient fat burner. And also the diet variation. So please read those articles. But I'll talk a little bit about this detox thing, because I do believe I'm gonna have trouble getting this up there. I can just tell. Okay, there you go. That's tight. Okay, wow. Ignore this little thing. Okay, so let's talk about. We said that the cell is the key, right? So up here, we want to get the cell functioning to fix the cell, right? There's my 5 R's, which really is the roadmap to how to fix a cell. And again, if we're going to get, you know, efficient fat burners, we have to fix the cell. So, and we're talking about detox here. So the problem is so many toxins shut down the cell function, and now the cell can't get rid of toxins. And that's a big issue too, because in every cell is a nucleus that has our DNA in it. We all have certain DNA that's good and bad, right? That we got from mom and dad. Well, when the cell starts to build up toxins, we can actually trigger and turn on those obesity genes, or those inability to lose weight genes, if you will. The good news is science shows that we can also turn them off. I mean, that's part of my 5 R's. If you haven't read those articles, read them, because that really is the understanding of how we can get the cell functioning and actually turn off these bad genes that we don't like, whether it's a thyroid condition we're expressing, diabetes. You know, we get these susceptibilities from our parents, but just because you have, I have 3, Meredith, of the 4 obesity genes. Me.
Wow.
3 of the 4 obesity genes. Obviously, it's not triggered, but I could easily trigger that gene. And at one point in my life, I was very skinny fat. So, you know, I get it. And, you know, when I was sick, I got even more skinny fat. I was losing muscle and just could not burn my fat around my waist. So, and for someone who's thin, it looks even worse than those, you know, kind of roly-polies. You know, it's like, to me, the skinny fat's even worse, maybe because I am one. I have the ability to be one. But, you know, when that gene gets turned on, we get doomed. But we have to turn it off. But the 5 R's is really about fixing the cell. And then we have the ability to turn off those genes that have been triggered. So we want to fix the cell. Obviously, we want to fix the membrane. R number 2 is regenerating the cell membrane. R number 3 is restoring cellular energy. And, you know, R4 is reducing inflammation, you see? And really, R5 is reestablishing methylation, which plays into turning off bad genes. R number 1 is removing the source, and we have to do it at the cell. Okay, so once we get the cell functioning, now we can start to dump toxins from the cell, right? Most of those toxins make their way to our downstream detox pathways, like our liver, okay? So once it goes into the liver, it has to be processed, and then it typically then makes its way to the intestines. So if that's the liver, and we bring some to our kidneys, right? I always call these my bananas because I don't know how to draw kidneys. I don't know who does. We could draw our skin, our lymphatic. There's other detox pathways, but this is the main way that the body removes toxins. So true cellular detox, there's 3 components. Number 1, we have to get the cell working because that's it. We have to go all the way upstream to here. Whereas most detoxes, whether it's a colon cleanse, a liver cleanse, they're down here. They're not up here, right? Those things are great because the second component to true cellular detox is opening up detox pathways. We want the gut to be healed, and a lot of our intermittent fasting and ancient healing helps heal the gut. So we want these pathways to open up. So there's nothing wrong with a colon cleanse or the 10-day liver cleanse, if you will, but it's down here, it's not here. So part of the second component is opening up these detox pathways, getting the cellular detox pathways open. Then the third component is using true binders. I'll say true because most herbal things and binder and detox products that people buy out there, including chlorella, cilantro, they don't work. And sometimes they can even make you worse because they're very weak binders. True binders they grab onto these toxins and help this whole system. It escorts it out of the body very well. And we've talked about the new Cyto Detox product that we use. We've talked about things like DMSA that is very people can't get anymore because the FDA is true binders, and we've talked about alpha lipoic acid and these true binders. They're all in my articles. I wrote the article True Cellular Detox. You can learn more about this. But the point that I want you to get here for the sake of time is this. The 10-day cleanse that you buy in your health food store, the colon cleanse that you get who knows where, it's way down here. The products, the milk thistle, you go through the list, it's down here. We have to get it coming from the cell, the 5 R's, getting the cell function going, moving the toxins out, and then keeping it moving out. Because a lot of people will dump the toxins in their gut, Meredith, and then they reabsorb it back into the liver. And then they reabsorb it back into their bloodstream. So this is why I call this true cellular detox, because you have to get to the cell to get well. Now, once we start getting the cells detoxing themselves, that's the magic. Then the exposures that you run into, because we can't stop it, right? It's impossible. Now your cell's getting rid of it naturally. You're not turning on bad genes. And more importantly, you're not driving inflammation of the membrane and blunting the hormone receptors. So once we can remove and start to remove these toxins from the cell and out of the body, now what happens is the cell can start hearing the hormones again. And that's the key. So, and the analogy I always love to give, everybody's taking more hormones and it works a little bit in the beginning. You feel a little bit better, whether it's estrogen, testosterone, any hormone, thyroid hormone. But eventually, it's like shouting at our kids. In the beginning, when you yell loud, that's giving more hormones. It works. The kids listen. But eventually, they stop hearing you. And you either have to yell louder, which makes them even more deaf to your words, or eventually you start whispering, and they start listening more. That's what we want to do with our cell. Once we fix the cell, get the cell detoxing itself, this is where the health comes from. This is how you fix hormone conditions. This is how you get to be an efficient fat burner. But if you don't deal with this toxic epidemic at the cellular level, you're never, ever, ever going to get to be that efficient fat burner. I don't care how many hormones you take. Thyroid hormone, people say, yeah, I take my medication that my doctor gives me, a thyroid hormone. My blood work gets better, but I still don't feel well. Because you can take more and more hormone, but these receptors are getting more and more blunted. You're not getting to the cause. Ask your doctor, why are my hormone receptors not hearing the hormone? Why does my blood work still look better when I take the hormone, but I still don't feel well? Well, that's because they're not doing anything for your cell. So detoxing the cell is the #1 way to really become that efficient fat burner. This is the toxins that we're introduced to in our beauty supplies, personal care products, the food that we're eating, the vaccinations, the yearly flu shots. These are neurotoxins that are driving this epidemic of cellular inflammation. We've got to deal with the cause. There's no downstream solutions of special herbs, all these things that people want to take. We have to get upstream to this. This is real detox. This is the real answer to why people don't feel well and why people can't lose weight. So I know it's a lot, but Meredith, you probably have some questions, I hope, because that means they have questions.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's so profound too, just to make the statement, because so many people that want to lose weight don't think that toxicity is an issue. They just think they can change their diet and start exercising a lot and lose weight. But when you bring in the concept of true cellular detox and telling, and sharing the information that if you don't get to the cell to fix your cells, you're never going to be able to lose weight. People then start to get it. But I think for so many people, there's such a disconnect between their weight and the toxicity. So I think that's just really profound. And but I also wanted to kind of talk about exercise too, since that's something we've kind of skirted around, haven't really delved into that. And that is one of the 5 strategies that we discussed in these articles, along with controlling blood glucose, diet variation, intermittent fasting, and the true cellular detox, which you just talked about. But I think it's also a key component to this. So can you kind of speak a little bit about exercise and the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it, right?
Yeah, when we look at, look, I think endurance exercise is great. I think that high intensity exercise is great. I think there's benefits to both. However, for weight loss, there's one that works much better, and that's the high intensity. We know from studies that people that go out and do the running and they just run, or the aerobics class, or and they keep their heart in that fat burning zone. Do you burn more fat when you're in that mild, moderate heart rate? Yes. When you're exercising in that fat burning zone, you burn more fat during exercise, but only when you're exercising for that 30 minutes to an hour. Yeah. After that, studies show the opposite happens. Studies show that you actually start to, hormones for weight loss actually go down. So the important anabolic hormones that we need actually go lower. And cortisol and some of these other hormones start to rise and put us into more of a fat storing mode instead of a fat burning mode after the exercise is done. So yes, you burn more fat during, but the problem is people have a tendency to burn more muscle after endurance exercise because of the hormones that either get stimulated or not. So endurance exercise is not great for people who are struggling to lose weight. Now the opposite. Studies show that high intensity exercises raises growth hormone, raises anabolic hormones, and makes your membrane more sensitive to other hormones. So that's a great thing for people who are struggling to lose weight. And I said that you should be able to lose weight without exercise. So exercise is the cherry on the top. And if you're going to do it, do the right one if you're struggling to lose weight, and that is the high intensity. So by the way, when you're doing high intensity exercise, which we like to call burst training, and I've done articles on that. It's one of the strategy articles. So what happens is you don't burn any fat at all. You actually burn stored sugar. But here's the magic. Everything with weight loss is about adaptation and survival. So what happens is your body says, uh-oh, we have no stored energy. So what it does is for the next 24 to 36 hours, the next day or two, it becomes this hormonally efficient fat burner, and it starts to burn your fat to replace the glycogen. Hormonally a shift takes place with high intensity training that works for the advantage of those struggling to lose weight. We want to do high intensity, and a day in between high intensity actually works better for people struggling to lose weight. read the articles, they're there, but just know this for this show's sake, that there is an exercise that will assist you. You should be able to lose weight without it, but that is the cherry on the top. But do the right exercise if you struggle to lose weight. Do the high intensity exercise. That makes you the hormones go in the right direction and more sensitive to those hormones, and that's key. So,
yeah.
You know, and
so just so many people still just on a treadmill for an hour running, and I look and so many of them, a lot of them on the treadmills running these long distances and even marathons. I mean, there are still a lot of people that exercise for long periods of time that are very overweight. So just a huge disconnect, and just I think it's so important to say, like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to put yourself and your body through all of that stress to really get results.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, this is the True Cellular Detox. We have about 60 doctors trained around the country. We have a few that do virtual appointments. So, you know, if people want help with that process, you know, my passion has been, you know, to train doctors in True Cellular Detox, you know, and cellular healing. You know, and that's been the passion for people who don't feel well, don't know why. They've been down every road, right? And we've seen absolute, you know, miracles happen, you know, just understanding this process. But, you know, you need coached. You need a coach. You know, people hire a coach, you know, to be a better golfer. You know, what more important than to, you know, really get your health back? And, you know, True Cellular Detox is, you know, it is a process that starts it's the cell, and it is a pet peeve of mine when it comes to, you know, detox. Most people do it wrong. They don't get upstream high enough, you know, and it's, you know, it's just, there's so much sold out there that's just simply not real. You know, this is the real deal. Yeah, and it's dangerous, right? I mean, when I did cilantro, you know, look, there's certain toxins that you just need a coach to, because there's multiple pitfalls in the process. You know, you can't, you know, utilize certain true binders when you still have silver fillings in your mouth. Eventually, it sets up a concentration gradient, and people start losing more mercury from the filling because it starts moving out. You know, there's a lot of pitfalls in the process. You know, I took cilantro. I was juicing cilantro because I heard it moved heavy metals out of the brain. You know, my wife almost had to check me into an insane asylum. I mean, literally, I did. I lost my mind. And I hear those stories all the time because people read the article I wrote, When Detox is Dangerous. If you haven't read it, read it, because it's true. There's a lot of things that can, you know, be wrong. I mean, it's like stirring the bee's nest. It causes a redistribution of heavy metals and some of these toxins that are worse than regular toxins. They cross into the brain, and that's a problem. And, you know, one of the things I always like to do is draw the brain here. Hey, that's a pretty good head. All right, so here's the brain. I'll put a little eye there. Ultimately, we have to get to the toxins here today. You know, brain detox within this system is key. And, you know, I said there's 3 components to True Cellular Detox. You know, fix the cell, right? Go up here, open up these downstream pathways. And the third was use true binders. Well, there's 3 phases to True Cellular Detox. Phase 1 is a preparatory phase where we prepare the cell and the pathways, right? That could last a few months or a month. And then the other component, the other phase is the body phase, where we clear out the body to set up concentration before we go into the brain and that deep nerve tissue. This is where people get their lives back. This is where I got my life back. You know, and that's the third phase of True Cellular Detox, is the brain phase. So you see there's 3 components that make up True Cellular Detox. There's 3 phases, you know, and it's very important, you know. And again, you know, if we don't have a doctor trained in your area, we have, you know, I do virtual. I have clients that are all over the world, from Singapore to New Zealand, Australia, Dubai. I mean, you name it, I have clients there. So, and this is the magic, you know. And most of people that are dealing with heavy metals, biotoxins from mold, Lyme, you know, certain hidden infections, these are big boy toxins. You really need a coach, you know, to walk you through, you know, this process. So, but, you know, that's the real deal. I'm going to move that over to give myself a little bit more room. But, you know, Merritt, that is the real deal on, you know, what most people aren't doing. And, you know, most doctors, oh yeah, do a colon cleanse, do a liver cleanse, this cleanse, that cleanse. Way too downstream. You know, so the key to weight loss, the answer to weight loss resistance, you have to get the cell hearing the hormones. You know, that why people can't lose weight today, it's a hormone problem. More specifically, it's a cellular problem. More specifically, it's a receptor problem, right? Our number two is, really regenerating that cell membrane and those receptors to the hormones. And once we get the cells hearing our hormones, we feel good. Weight loss, not giving in on diets, and it's all very easy. So fix the cell, you get well.
Yeah. Amazing information. This is an amazing show. I hope you guys got a lot out of it. If you want to learn more, you can read the 5 strategies articles. Definitely strongly encourage you to read through those 5 strategies, because they are the answer to fixing the cell and fixing your hormones so you can lose weight. So amazing information. Thank you so much, Dr. Pompa, for sharing just your breadth of knowledge. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you next week. We're going to talk about how to look better longer, right? Anti-aging. More importantly to me is feel better longer. You know, I look younger and I feel better at 50 than I did when I was in my 30s. No doubt. And every one of you can do that. So stay tuned next week. And I think, Meredith, you said you could join us on that show as well, because you know a lot about the topic. You know, you help edit a lot of these articles, so you know where they're at. So read those articles, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.